I can remember Brown saying, "Am I going to die?" I said, "Not before me." And so I'm grabbing him and I'm trying to get through all the bullets and the dead bodies and the people that are moaning and groaning or trying to get out of your way or trying to kill you. And I called in for airstrikes and I had all that going, and I had the Air Force, the artillery, and even naval gunfire. Now, once that happened, and that took almost 3.5, almost 4 hours, I went back out and went around to third base and brought that guy in. That guy was Reinberg, who had actually gone out to get me some ammunition because we were almost out of ammunition. When I picked up Reinberg, the first thing that happened, it went boom, boom. Someone had shot him in the chest. And so the next thing was, how do I get Reinberg back from where he is to where our camp headquarters was? There was still fighting going on, and we had to fight for another 2.5 days. I ordered a dust off, and they came in the next morning. I can remember stepping out of the helicopter for just a minute. There were so many dead bodies on that battlefield that we couldn't see the grass under the people that were shot up.
Let's go!
Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is I Came With Fire podcast. We are here today with retired U.S. Army Colonel and Medal of Honor awardee, Colonel Paris Davis. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to take a look at your career and the time you've spent in the military. And thank you so much for your service and the time today to talk with us.
Great.
Awesome. I wanted to sort of start the conversation by saying, your generation of veterans really did not have the welcome home that they deserved. And I was taught a long time ago that it is the appropriate thing to say to Vietnam veterans, that to say welcome home, because you guys did not get the welcome that you deserve. So I just want to take the time to say that as well. And then I think it would be a good place to start the conversation to begin by talking about your generation and how you came to join the U.S. military, your time in ROTC, and what that was like.
Well, I went to Southern University, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I really liked the ROTC program. And the reason why I liked it, because I didn't know anything about it. And when I got there, I can remember going through the getting set up to be a person that was in school there. And I can remember the sergeant coming up to me saying, what are you going to do when you graduate? Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm not really sure. And he said, this is what you should do, and remember, I'm only going to say this every time I see you. Mm-hmm. And it's this: once you graduate, if you don't have a job, the Army is there.
Right.
You ought to think about going into the military after school.
Right.
And I took that seriously. And the other thing is, he said, we pay you a little money every month. There's some other things you can do to make more money, but your concentration should be, number one, on your schoolwork, and number two, on the ROTC program. Mm-hmm. Because even though you might be in the ROTC program, it doesn't mean that we're going to accept you. You're going to have to prove to us that you weren't the time to do what we're asking you to do, and do it the right way, because we're not going to be spending money on soldiers and students and all that, and they don't want to be there. They just want to be paid every month. Mm-hmm. Do we have an understanding there? And I said, we sure do. And he said, I'll try to help you as much as I can. We have teachers, we have this, we have that. If you put all this stuff together, you can really, really do well. Right. And he said, I don't know if I'm going to take a liking to you, or maybe not liking you at all. But here's the deal. If you will take me seriously about trying to help you, I think I can make really a good soldier out of you. I said, let's go after it. And so we started out with him giving me some of the basics about the ROTC program. And it was really important to me that he did that because I didn't have that from Dooley Squad about what all this was about. Because I didn't have any background in the military, even though I had an uncle that had served in the military. It wasn't something that was me. And when you come back from the military, especially if you're in World War II, I don't know, everyone sort of clams up and don't want to talk about the war because they were in it.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't a good place for me to be, even though I shared the same name with him. And once that happened, and I felt very comfortable with the people and the soldiers down at Southern University, I really became very comfortable with what they were trying to do.
Gotcha.
So that's where I was, and that's where I stayed for most of my military career.
Gotcha. Would you say that he was probably one of your biggest mentors throughout the ROTC program?
The ROTC program they had, at that time there were a lot of schools, black schools, that were just beginning to get the ROTC program. Prairie View and others that were bigger than we were had just started with the Army ROTC. And not only that, but they were allowed to join the Navy ROTC and some others. So there was some stuff out there in terms of schooling and all that I knew was there. And when I got a chance to meet some of the guys at Prairie View, we had good conversations, and it just I began to like it more and more.
What, with the climate of the country at the time that you were going into the ROTC program and just getting those ROTC programs to some of these schools, what was that like? Were there any obstacles that you guys had to overcome as a part of that, or was this? I had to imagine there was some sort of growing pains with that, wasn't there?
Well, there were a lot because it was a time when the war had started, and people didn't want our military to be in it. And when you decided to join the ROTC program, the first thing I think I ever heard from any student that was going to Southern University was calling me a baby killer because I had just joined the ROTC program and they didn't want it at Southern University. So it was one of these things where you had to really be careful about what you said and how you said it. And some of the soldiers that were already in the military would always telling us to be very careful about what you said and with whom you said it, because they wanted that ROTC program to be really good at Southern University. It wasn't good at all the schools that you tried to be, or they tried to be in, or the ROTC tried to be in. But for Southern University, they wanted to make it was an exception. Not only that, but the NCOs that were actually in the military, that's a job for them. And they're going to be rated good, bad, or indifferent in terms of how they treated us and how good we became, so that they could keep the program at Southern University. And so it was the war was beginning to start. ROTC was a new thing in a lot of the university. LSU and others had, LSU was very close to Southern University. They had started to get the ROTC program. They were a lot bigger than us, and so they had Army, Air Force, and Navy. And that didn't bother me at all, because what I didn't want was to be in a situation where we were looked down upon and not equal to some of the other ROTC programs going on.
Absolutely. The climate of the country at the time seems to be pretty tense, obviously, given the perspective we have now in 2025. How, like you said, somebody had called you a baby killer for joining the ROTC program. How did you overcome that sort of condescension from people and the decision you were making to join the military? Because, that sentiment is still pretty present today, especially now. But I'm just kind of curious how you were able to overcome a lot of that negativity that came your way during that time.
Well, two ways. Number one, after I joined the ROTC program, they give you a uniform, they give you all these kind of good stuff. But you're in a metropolitan area. And I can remember the first time I had my uniform on and we were going some other place. As I was coming out of Travelers Air Force Base, I can remember one of the flower girls coming up to me, and I got ready to say something to her. Before I could say anything, she spit in my mouth.
Oh my gosh.
And it really pissed you-know-what off.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to myself, Miss, don't do that again, because I don't know what I'll do, because I'm a pretty calm person. But if you spit in my mouth again, we're going to have problems right here in River City.
Absolutely.
She backed away, and three of her friends came up, and they looked like they wanted to do something. Luckily, there were some ROTC guys going the same place I was going on. When they saw that, they backed away, and that ended.
Right. Man, that's so disrespectful. I can't believe you had to endure something like that. That's terrible for you to have to go through.
Well, that was the time when everyone had something to say and a way to say it.
Yeah.
The number of little protests going here, there, and everywhere, names on this, that, and the other, everywhere. And so, you got used to it. But the other thing is, when it happens to you early on, you guard yourself against it.
Yeah.
You see something like that, you want to move to the middle, the other side of the street, or get out of their way, so you don't have any kind of confrontation.
Right. That's a very, very unique part of America's history, is that era. I have family members that are Vietnam veterans and who grew up during that time and didn't serve, but a lot of the tensions in our country at that time were really sort of confluencing, I feel like, and Vietnam was the sort of the head of a lot of those things, and the attitude that Americans shared toward some of the foreign policy decisions that we were making, and so I think it's pretty remarkable for you to commit to becoming an officer in the U.S. military and dedicating your life to something like that, because I think anybody who's served knows that you're not serving to basically do what the government tells you to do. There's a lot of people think that, but you're serving because you want to do the honorable thing and protect, America, and do what you're doing for the people to the left and the right of you. And I'm sure that some of those relationships you made with people at ROTC, and then obviously once you entered the service on active duty, those are the people that you're really serving with and serving for the most, and I think that it's an incredibly honorable thing to do, especially in the face of the difficulties that our country was facing at the time. But at what point did you decide that you were going to go into special forces? Was that something that you could get into through make that decision inside ROTC and then go in on an active contract at the time, or is that something that you got in and made that decision to do?
That's a great question, and let me tell you how I did it. You may or may not remember, at that time, President Kennedy was thinking about running for president. And what happened there was he was doing a lot of things to let his name be known.
Yeah.
And I can remember him saying that if he was elected president, because the other thing that he was doing at that time, he was in the Navy.
Yes.
Remember, he was a PT pilot. He called himself a pilot. A PT pilot going from point A to point B in Europe during the war. And he had come out after he had finished his time and he was ready to come out. I can remember him writing two or three pieces in the plain dealer paper about what he wanted to do. And he had come out saying that he wanted to really do some different things in our military that he thought would be better in terms of us being able to win the war. One of the things that he wanted to do was to do what he was doing as a PT pilot, and that is to go in, do whatever dirt you were going to do, get the devil out of Dodge, and stay out and make sure you were still safe. And that's what, when I found out and saw it in the newspaper, I wrote him a letter saying that I'd like to be part of the new program that he was about to start. Didn't say what it was. He just said he wanted to do something different, that we had to be a lot quicker, a lot this and a lot that, and if we couldn't do those things, we weren't going to be successful. He said we just couldn't be successful trying to be like the rest of the military. And so I took the time and when I had nothing else to do but to think about what he has said, I wrote a letter. I don't know if he ever got it, that I wanted to be in that new program that he was about to start. And so the letter went off. It went to the Army, so forth and so on, and it stayed there for a while. I then, after I joined the ROTC program, I got orders once I graduated that I was going to go to IOBC, the Infantry Officer Basic Course, and it was going to be at Fort Benning, Georgia. And that they were going to send me a ticket, a bus ticket, and a plane ticket. And when that happened, I got both. And the other thing is that don't be late. I mean, I must have gotten one or two things saying, don't be late. And so I got on the bus at the right time, got to where the airport was, got there on time, and got down to Fort Benning, Georgia. And once I got down there, they hadn't gotten all the information that they said they were going to send me. And that is where I was going to be going, the station I was going to be going, what they wanted me to do, and where I could find some help if I got in a problem. Well, the only thing that really came out of that whole kit and caboodle was the fact that I met a sergeant major down there, and I was looking for where I had to go, and he couldn't tell me. I mean, he could tell me, but he didn't have my name or anything else. So I'm walking around there for about a week and a half before he came out again and said, you know what, I don't know where you're supposed to go. I'm going to put you in the airborne school. And that's what he did. And when I finished that, I came back out and he saw me again. He said, I don't know what the devil I'm going to do with you. You just stay right here. I'm going to find some other place for you to go. When they came back, he said, you're going to Ranger School. So I had airborne and Ranger right there out of the way. Wow. And so then I got to a regular unit. And when I got there, they were trying to get their act together because everything was so new with Kennedy at that time. So there were about maybe about 14, 16 guys who were in the same boat I was in. And we met up and we had a loose thing about hand-to-hand combat and all the other kind of basics that you have when you're in the infantry. And I can remember the second or third day when we were in there boxing each other, the guy hit me in the lip and broke in about 4 places. Dang. I learned talking just the way I'm talking right now. And and oh man, they were having a good time.
Oh yeah.
I tell you, for about 4 or 5 days, no, it was longer than that, for my lips to heal, and I'll be doggone if that didn't happen the second time. Now I'm really pissed. And hey, I don't know if I'm in the Army or not, but we talked some more, and I got close to them, and we learned a lot of the basics and being stealthily and all the other kind of things. So that went over really well. But the other thing that happened there was this is just a side bar, and that is the people that were there, the kids, the soldiers or almost soldiers that were there, they had a bond between them that they wanted to make that unit a good unit. So I wasn't really taken in right away because they had come together before me and felt that they could be a group that could really help America. Later on, after we went through the training for a while, I was accepted in there as a member, and I can remember towards the end of that period when we were all, most of us were accepted into what we wanted to do, and that was to do the kind of things that Kennedy had been talking about.
Yeah.
And that was settled. I started training with all of them, and I can remember when we finally were told that we were going to be part of the new unit. I can remember 3 or 4 of those soldiers coming over to me and saying, look, you think that we're racist. We're not racist. What we are, we're people that we think we have the courage to be good soldiers. That's what this is all about. We don't give a rat's ass what you look like, who you say it with. But if you're going to be part of this unit, then we're going to have to follow the rules and regulations that we all are coming up with to make sure that we are successful. And so that's how it started.
Wow. I like that you added that tidbit at the end because I would say that my friend group while I was active duty was probably one of the most diverse friend groups I've ever had. And you got the cowboy from Texas, you got the inner city kid, you got the beach bum kid, all of these people from all these different walks of life. And because of the military, you find a way to be friends, and it's that shared struggle you have. And I can't tell you that I met anybody really who cared what somebody looked like more than they cared about what they did and how well they did their job while I served. And I just think that the military is one of these places where obviously there's bad apples everywhere, but for the most part, the military is a place that cares more about who you are on the inside. And that was my experience for the most part is that everybody just was looking to take care of one another, and all of these immutable characteristics tended to not matter, which is an awesome thing.
There was one other thing that came up. I can remember the second night that we were all there, and we were in a tent. I mean, we weren't in a hooch. We were in a tent. Yeah. I mean, the rain had holes in the ceiling. Everything. But I can remember one night, everyone was called to be in this one room. And what had happened, someone had stole money from one of the other soldiers. And I'm going to tell you, they found out who it was, and I tell you, they just beat the you-know-what out of him.
Yeah.
Because once you steal something, you
can't be trusted.
You're marked. You're marked forever.
Yep.
And they said, this is what happened. They rolled him in a blanket and put another blanket over his head and just went after him. Just one guy who did something wrong, and the rest of us were trying to make sure it was right the next time.
Yeah.
So that's how that started. And the other thing, and you mentioned it, is something about groups working together once they find out that they are going to be a group and they are going to have to work together, and race, creed, color, and all that doesn't matter as long as you do it the right way.
Yes. No, it's basic teamwork at its heart, and I think that's also why it's so important to get kids involved in team sports and things like that as they grow up. These programs that encourage their merit and their effort more than anything, and I think those are the precursors to a lot of the lessons that you're going to carry with you into adulthood. You learn as a kid, and these participating in sports and going out and playing with your friends, where you're learning how to problem solve and you overcome these things. It's this process of life that sets you up for situations like what you're talking about, where the creed, the color of somebody doesn't matter, and it's just about the effort and the merit that go into these things. And I think that, for anybody who is wondering and has wondered, the military, I think, is one of the best examples of a meritocracy that we have, because this is where people come and they are able to excel the level of their effort. And this is just one of these things I think that a lot of people have seemed to misunderstood about the military. I would say the last couple of years, is that it's a place where, like I said before, there are some bad apples everywhere. But when you show up there, people are looking at you to do your job, and that is the number one thing we care about, and we take care of each other because of that. You had mentioned about finding out you're going to be in this new unit that President Kennedy was talking about, and I was sort of wondering, once you started performing the work that was required of you and this new unit, when did you sort of realize, like, yeah, this is exactly what it is I was looking for. This is what this mission or this job that we have is something special, and it's getting serious, and the elite level that I need to perform at is now, it's go time for that. When do you think you realized that?
Well, almost right away, and let me tell you why. If you're in a small unit like that and you can't be friendly with others, you can't be friendly with yourself. Now, the whole thing is, I can help you if you can help me. Mm-hmm. And the more we help each other, the better off the group's going to be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the key when you're starting out something that's brand new. You've never done it before. The only thing you can really do is at night, if you have a cake, all of you take a piece of it and say, we're going to work together to get this done and get it done correctly. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do it that way, then you're never going to be successful.
Yeah.
Because then it's when you start making up rules about this, that, and the other. Some of the rules that we made up right away. Number one, everyone had to pull all the duties initially that we had in the unit. That's washing dishes, cooking, so forth and so on, because others are going to be part of what you do at that time, and that is mm-hmm. if you're going to be a cook, everybody's going to eat your food, and so forth and so on. And if it's screwed up, like they said, my cooking was, they say, okay, you can do all these things that I've mentioned, except you ain't going to be cooking. I mean, we ain't going to eat that stuff.
Yeah.
The more you do that, the better off you get. And let me give you some other things that we decided to do. Number one, everyone in there had to pull guard duty. No exception. We had to learn how to do it right and get all the rules and regulations that you have to give out once you're on guard duty. And the other thing is, you had to make sure that the place was clean, the training that you were doing was crisp and right to the point, and that we had the people who were teaching us how to do all this stuff knew what they were doing, and they didn't take a lot of what. If you couldn't do it, they didn't want you in there, because the whole thing was, and you find this out later on, hey, look, we don't have anything against racism. What we do have about and want to get done is we wanted you to have the courage to do it right. Mm-hmm. And if you can't put those together, you ought to find someplace else to go. Yeah. So that's how it worked, and we did all that. The other thing that we did there was that we allowed, if we had differences with each other, if those two people couldn't come together, then we say, okay, I'm going to be on guard duty this night. You come out at this time, and you guys can duke it out until we find out what was wrong and why you should be here and not somewhere else fighting for something that's not important.
Right. What was your team's first opportunity to put all of this training and effort and teamwork that you guys had been practicing together into action? What was the first opportunity you guys had to do that?
The first opportunity we had was when we decided, or when the group decided, we were going to be able to read maps and do other kind of. We wanted to make sure that we had the right people there to teach us this, that, and the other about map reading, reading coordinates, and all. We wanted the basics so that when we got out there on our own, we could do what was necessary. So the basic was learning the basics.
Yeah.
And once we got there, we're ready to go. And we broke down into small groups so that we could work with the small group, so that when we got in a bigger group, we could even do that better. And the whole thing is, you got to come together at a place where you all can be there. And it's almost like being in school and you're having a test and everybody goes in and learns how to, all the questions and stuff that's going to be on the test, and then come out with good grades.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Absolutely.
where we were. And it made a lot of sense to me, and I think it made a lot of sense to all the other people there. And the other thing is, you've got to do what you said early on. Forget about what color you are, what you this and that. I don't care if you're orange, green, red, black,
Right.
brown, or whatever the hell it might be. If you're going to be there, you better be part of the group.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no room for that other stuff when the cost of failure is your life or somebody else's life. All that other stuff is irrelevant, and if you can't focus on getting the job done, then you don't belong there. That's one of the that is a core tenet of the military, is that it is exclusionary by nature, and it's exclusionary on whether or not you can do your job, and that's it. And I think you said that perfectly, that if you couldn't put these things aside, these immutable characteristics about people aside, then you have no place here, because the mission is the job, point blank.
You know, you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you, you get to the point that you say that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The mission is what we're here for.
Yep.
And we've got to be able to execute it in a way that makes sense. And that's when you have the group coming together. You have smart guys and maybe some not so smart guys. But if you're sharing it, everybody's going to be smart in the end. And one of the things we learned early on was, if you're having meetings like that, you have to include everyone, even the people you don't like. And they've got to be able, if you leave and they're there and something happens, they better be able to execute what all of you had talked about and do it right the first time, because you don't get a second time.
Right. We are all better together, something that we say all the time.
I like the way you put that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Because that's what we are.
We are. You know, one of the things that you get these young troops that come in, and you tell them, hey, here's a hard time. You need to be here, report here at the armory at 0330, or you need to be here for this or whatever. And one of the things that I feel like you have to explain all the time is the importance of being someplace when you're told to be someplace. Yeah. And all the other little things that you get asked to do, right? Because you're building up currency through the trust that you're able to show your leadership by being places on time and doing the small things that you're told to do. But the other part of it is you're showing that you're competent and able to execute on a smaller level, working up towards doing bigger things. And this is something, when you're new in the military, you have to learn, right? You understand you're being told something, but understanding the why of you're doing something is something that everybody has to come to cognitively, and you have to help people along with that. But what you said about we're here for the mission, and explaining to some of the younger troops about why it's important to be someplace on time, or why it's important to do something the way that you're supposed to do it, is because the mission requires you to work together and understand the bigger picture, and be included and all these things, and being where you need to be and doing what you need to do is all a part of that overall. It's not these individual siloed things. This is the whole picture that you're getting a part of, because you're here on time, because you're doing what I asked you to do. You're doing all these things, and the military is one of these institutions where your performance and your dedication to doing all of these little things right is what is going to earn you that currency with other people, and these opportunities are going to keep coming to you. But I like that you said that the mission is all of us basically moving in the same direction at the same time, and that is from the littlest thing all the way up to the biggest thing. And you guys in special forces, you guys just one of the biggest differences we always say, and my co-host Chris always says, that the biggest difference is that you guys do the little things to perfection, and that you train and train and train and train to do the little things right all the time. And that's the difference, because you have that dedication to getting things done right the way at that elite level, but everybody in the military has to participate in that at some point, right?
You're absolutely right. Let me give you another example. We had 105's aircraft that were at Okinawa. When we really started working to do our the best job, if we went out on a mission and the Air Force was still there, we bring back souvenirs and stuff like that and give it to them, because they were pilots, they have families. They're not going to be out there on the ground the way we were.
Yeah.
And let me tell you the other thing. Every time they would have a great mission, they come in and over our little camp right there, they flap their wings just to let us know they had a good time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if we shared what we had, if there was an emergency, one of those planes was going to be able to say, we got to do this too, and we're going to get out there and help them as much as we can. So it was this thing that you share with me, I'll share with you, and take credit for whatever we brought back. You can say you did it. It didn't bother us, right, because we were in the same war and we were the same friends. And the more you did that, the more it made sense to do that.
Right. I don't remember who said it, but there's a quote out there that says, "Imagine what we could accomplish if no one cared who got the credit." And I think that there is so much truth in that, because if you can set your ego aside and just do your job and not get lost in the recognition for you doing your job, if everybody could focus on that and move in that direction, the end goal and the outcome you get is the reward. And I think it's lost on a lot of people that the work you do is the reward and not necessarily the attaboy you may get at the end of it. But absolutely, man, if people could set their ego aside, we all as people could accomplish a lot more. And that's something I think too that the military is really good at teaching people to do.
You're absolutely right. And I'll tell you something else. You need, if you're coming back from an operation and a lot of things are going on, you've got to make sure the lowest rank that you might have going out with you, that person is served with a medal if he earned it, and so forth. And so the more you do that, when he goes home, he's not going to have a clean uniform with nothing on it. It's important that you show that you've been there and you've done that. And I'm really a person who believes in that. If you're fighting and you're doing this, somebody has to see what you're doing. They have to give you first of all, you have to identify that person. Secondly, you want to make sure if he's done something that's worth a medal, that we let people know what it is, and we make sure that that's taken care of. And so when that person leaves there, he ought to have something on his chest that said, hey, I was there too.
Yeah.
And it's not one of these things where you have one or two people that go out there and everything's in their favor and they've done this, that, and the other. Somebody had to get you there. Someone had to keep you there. Someone had to give you the ammunition and everything else. And if you don't have all that, you don't have a team.
Yeah. Very poignantly put, because you're talking about the role of a leader. And the taking the time to give recognition, that's your job, right? The troops that's serving under you, and in that leadership role you have, you owe them the time to provide that recognition. And what you're doing is important because it first and foremost, it establishes a foundation of camaraderie, in your company, or as we say in the Air Force, our flight, establishes this, and it also shows the faith that you as a leader have in the men who are doing the job underneath you, right, and the men that are serving. And this is so important because you're, like we said before, sort of along this thread, you're building currency with other people, and you're showing the the NCOs or the junior NCOs, or whomever, maybe your company grade officers that you're taking care of, right? That you are you're looking out for them and recognize what they do, and that's so important in that relationship you have to have and the trust that you're building with one another.
That's exactly what you just said. And let me tell you why. You can come back. Maybe you weren't on that operation, but there were people that were there, and you can bring them in after you hear what happened, and you say, okay, tell him what he did, when the time, and so forth and so on. You can write that up and say, okay, look at it. Is that right? And they say yes. And, okay, you were there. Tell me, is this right? And they say yes, it is. I mean, and you can put them in for that medal because you've got two people now that have seen exactly what happened. And why wouldn't you give them the power and the privilege of being recognized as one of the people in America that's fighting for America overseas, and they see all this stuff going on? They want to make sure that he's solid in terms of getting the recognition that's really necessary, because that is important when you're in a war like that, and you leave it, you go home, and all you're wearing is the uniform you came in, and that doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work for you.
Recognizing your troops should be one of the easiest things that a leader can do, because you should want to do it, and you should want to look out for them that way, and that's why it's easy. And not enough people, I think, find the value in taking the time to give those kudos and the recognition, an award, a medal, whatever it is. It goes beyond just the immediate. When you leave the service, you'll have that decoration. It'll be something that you're proud of, right? And you're not just instilling that sense of camaraderie in the moment. You may be making the difference for somebody, a year or two down the road, when maybe they've hit a bump in their career, and they may look back and say, hey, you know what? I really had this good experience, and I think that I could probably have another good experience. And now you're talking about maybe somebody who provides a lot of value staying in the military and making it a career because you took the time to do the right thing. You're sort of guaranteeing the posterity of better troops in the service. You know what I mean?
I mean, I know exactly what you mean, and I totally believe in what you just said. It is so important. The other thing is, sometimes you lose someone in your group, and he's gotten a couple, 3 medals and so forth. You might want to write a little letter to the mom or the dad or whatever, and let that person get the medals and an explanation of what happened. And the other thing is, you can always try to get your superior to write a little note and put in the box or whatever it might be, so the family knows, look, that their son would never be forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it's cool that you brought that up about writing family members. I had one commander in my 15 years who took the time to write a letter, I remember, to one of the troops I had. And, to give you the real quick backstory on it, he had arrived in, I was at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. He got there, immediately sort of had some trouble. He'd fallen asleep on post, got an Article 15. And, so I was his supervisor. And at the time, my job was to build him back up. He's got a lot of time left on his contract, and, how to build his confidence back up and get him to be a functional, productive member, on flight. And that took a lot of work on his part and mine as well, but he did the work to understand that I want to be here, and I want to do a good job, and I want other people to see that I can be of value here, and he did the work to do that. And one of the coolest things I remember when he promoted to E4, to senior airman in the Air Force, one of the commanders I had, he was doing the promotion ceremony, and the person's parents had come. They'd flown in or whatever to Montana for this ceremony, And he took the time to acknowledge the parents, and he had something for them. And then he had written, I don't know what was on it, but he had written a letter to the parents, and it was basically this is how awesome your son is letter, and he gave it to them as part of, he gave them like an Air Force pin and some other things. But recognize that, and that's an incredible thing, because going back to keeping somebody in the military, building their confidence, showing them that they provide value and that you're recognizing that value. Those little acts. Maybe the kid is considering getting out. He talks to mom and dad. They say, hey, you had this really good experience. We know what you can do. We know how awesome you are. It's so incredible, these little decisions that you can make in a leadership position to make somebody feel better about themselves, help them recognize their potential, and keep them around. I mean, these are the people that you want to keep around, right?
The other thing is, if you get a chance to bring the parents in from Montana or wherever, and you present the medals and all that, usually the mom or even the dad will come up and start crying a little bit, or this, just thanking everyone for the time that they took to take care of their son or whatever.
Absolutely.
It might be. That is so important.
For sure. And not to bring it down a little bit, but when commanders, their responsibility when something goes wrong, as well, and maybe you have to call a parent and give them some unfortunate news, it being able to, if something like that happens and you have also taken the time to recognize people and talk to families and show kudos for the good things people do, it helps balance out the negativity that you may encounter in your career as well. And not everything and not all the actions you have to take that go the extra mile have to be because something bad happened.
You're absolutely. And the other thing about it, when they usually get home, the mom or the dad will sit down and write a little note thanking them for being there, and the dinners that you served and all the things that you brought back from after the son was killed. I mean, all that is really important. And usually, when they get back, if the family's bigger, they'll, let everyone see what he was doing and how he was doing, all the clothes and all the medals and all of this. It makes that family really very proud that son had done his job, and others have recognized that, and they wanted to show their appreciation by making sure stuff was clean, ironed, or whatever it might be when they gave it to them. And once they got home, they opened the package, and the family could really look at it and be very happy about what he did and what the family stands for.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think you said that well. If we could shift gears a little bit and just ask you, when you found out that you were going to Vietnam, what feeling did you encounter immediately when you found that out?
I was scared. I mean, the thing you did at that time when the war was really new and things were happening, and I don't know if it was at the airport in New York or wherever, but they had a place where all the bodies would come. You probably know better where that was. And the thing about it, initially, they didn't want parents to be there, but somehow parents found out where it was going to be, and they started coming there. And now you have something else you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And to have parents there looking at caskets and this, that, and the other is not the best place to see it. But at the same time, the fact that you can make that as, how do I want to say, as soft as possible with them understanding this is war and everything doesn't always go our way.
Yeah.
But we try to do our very best to make sure we take care of everyone we can.
Yeah.
And things like that, so that, things go well. And the other thing is, there's nothing wrong with, and I've done this, sending flowers to that house before the mom and dad can get home.
Absolutely, I agree. When you arrived in Vietnam, what was your immediate impression?
Well, I have two impressions. Initially, when we went into Vietnam, it was 1960, and there were times when the Viet Cong were not well trained
Hmm.
and all that, and so we had an up. I mean, we could go. And I've only seen this done twice. One of the sergeants would take. They had long rifles like they had that Washington had, and they would take the weapon from him and say, "Okay, I'm gonna kick you in your butt and don't do it again." And that happened for about a half a
Wow.
year. There was a guy named Jop, and he was head of the Viet Cong, and he started training them. It brought in the French, and the French trained a lot of them. Then the French and Vietnam had a falling out,
Hmm.
and so the French left, and that's when the Americans started going in.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was that they had learned to fight, and I'm talking about the Viet Cong because the French had taught them. And the only reason why the French weren't there, they had a falling out, and so the French came to America, to the Americans to see if.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of the guy who was a president of or the governor of Texas then, whatever his name was. He
I'm not
took
sure.
over and then became president of the United States. He was Kennedy's deputy.
Hmm.
Um,
Are you talking about Johnson?
Pardon me?
Talking about Johnson?
Well, no, it wasn't him, but it was a guy that big guy, and he was from Texas.
Okay.
And he was the anyhow to make the story a little bit longer. The fact is that all this stuff happened, and we took a turn because he said he wasn't going to run again for president,
Hmm.
and it just stopped right there. But we had learned our lesson. We had learned our lesson, especially in terms of joint services, because there was a time when if we hadn't had an Air Force, we would all be there,
Hmm.
in graves. It was one of the best things that happened was to see the 105s and the others, and I mean these guys could fly.
Right.
I mean they knew what the devil they were doing, and they
Right.
knew how to do it the right way. And the same thing, we had groups that we had if they got shot down or something, we'd get out there right away. Special forces would get out there and try to find out where he was, and if we could help to get him back to all the things were necessary for us to give the services to the pilots that were out there. Same thing with the Navy and the Marine Corps. But the whole thing, we became better at what we were doing,
Hmm.
and it became easier for them. And I'm talking about the pilots and all that because they were the one going in North Vietnam and bombing, and all this. It wasn't us,
Hmm.
and so they're the ones that really needed help if they got shot down or wounded, or we could go in and get the ones that were wounded, take them, get them to the hospital. So all that stuff was part of the package, and as part that I learned as being in special forces that I don't know if you guys started it or what, but the sign was, and you can see it on the aircraft, no one's going to be left behind.
Hmm.
And that was the thing that we would say that would keep us going to make sure that American soldiers, sailors, Air Force, so forth, were taken care of if they got shot down.
Yeah.
That was a must.
Yeah.
I mean, we go in on helicopters and everything and try to find them right away
Yeah.
before the Viet Cong could do that. Because if we didn't, if the Viet Cong would get them there, we didn't know if they were going to be alive or whatever. So anyhow, that was a big thing that we did all over Vietnam. Try to be there to get the pilots if they were shot down,
Yeah.
and it worked. It worked. We all did and we could get the coordinates and all this other thing. And that was a good thing about learning about coordinates right away that you and I were talking about initially. So that's what we tried to do.
Were the majority of your missions when you were in Vietnam rescue missions like that, going after down pilots and things, or were they other
That was
things?
that was part of the other part is we had and I want you to look this up. Might look up Paris Davis
Mhm.
and look up Bong-Son. We had
Oh, yeah.
a battle there where we earned
Yes.
some streamers and so forth, and we fought for almost 4.5 days there.
Yeah.
I got shot up and so forth and so
You
on.
did.
But the fact of the matter is, we didn't back away what we had to do, and we always went out looking for pilots. And the other thing that happened there, you may or may not know about it, some of the stuff that was happening about the buildings being bombed here and so forth and so on, we were looking for guys that looked like the guys that would bomb those buildings,
Yeah.
and to be there to get them if we could.
Hmm. No, I definitely read about Bong-Son and the fact that you had refused evacuation, looking to help your men, and I think it's remarkable what you did, and I can't believe how long it took for you to receive the recognition that you deserve from that. But I was wondering as well if you were able to or willing to recount what those 4 days were like for the audience, if that's something you're willing to talk about.
Well, I can talk about it. I'm not I don't like preaching about it or talking about it, but it's something that happened, and I'd be more than happy. You let me know when you want to do it, and we can come to a time or now or whatever,
Yeah,
and
we
I'll
can do
try to
now.
give you.
Absolutely, I would love to hear what that, and for people to hear what you went through and what the men that were serving with you went through. I think that stories like that are not just important to learn about because it's American history and understanding sacrifice and that, but that people need to hear what American troops have been through, and there's a lot to be learned from these situations, and a lot to take away from not just the lessons that you learned during battle, but to take away from the Vietnam War in general. But I would love to hear, if you mind doing it right now, what those 4 days were like for you guys, and some of the brave young men that served under you during that battle. Would like to hear your thoughts and memories on them as well.
Okay, let me see if I can give you a quick look. Number one, I want you to consider yourself on a baseball field. I want you to consider home plate
Okay.
where you are. I want you to look at second base where one of your team members is. And I want you to look at third base where you have a team member. And then you have look at first base. Now let me tell you why. The person that was wounded the worst was a guy named Brown. Brown was about 150 yards from home plate to second base. And what I had to do, and I was by myself, but I'm not, I don't want you to think that I was a hero. But anyhow, from second base to, from home plate to second base was about 150 yards. I want you to
Okay.
remember that.
Hmm.
And I had to go through the all the trees and where dogs would do their stuff and all this, and get to where people had been killed and where we were killing people and they were trying to kill some of us. So I had to get that all the way to second base. Now, after I got to second base, there was a guy named Brown that was one of my soldiers, and I can remember when I got there, he had been shot in the temple,
Mm.
and he was bleeding profusely.
Right.
And so my thing is, he's at second base. I've got to go back to home base. Now, how do I get him from there to here?
Hmm.
And the whole thing was that he had so much blood that came out of his head that when I tried to grab him to get a grip on him so that I could find how I wanted to try to get him back, every time I would put my hands around him, my hands would slip off because there was so much blood. And so I finally got my arms under his arms, and I folded my hands behind me, and
Hmm.
so that I can remember Brown saying, "Am I going to die?" And I can remember that he'll never leave me. I said, "Not before me." And so I'm grabbing him, and I'm trying to get through all the bullets and the dead bodies and the people that are moaning and groaning or trying to get out of your way or trying to kill you. And I called in for airstrikes, and I had all that going, and I had the Air Force, the artillery, and even naval gunfire that helped me get the guy from second base back to home plate. Now, once that happened, and that took almost 3.5, almost 4 hours, I went back out and went around to third base and brought that guy in. And that guy was Reinberg, who had actually gone out to get me some ammunition because we were almost out of ammunition. When I picked up Reinberg, the first thing that happened, it went boom, boom. Someone had shot him in the chest. And so the next thing was, how do I get Reinberg back from where he is to where our camp headquarters was? That took another couple of 3 hours.
Wow.
And he was a big guy, about 6'1", 6'2", not fat or anything, but just big. And trying to get a grip on him to get him from point A to point B. He had dropped the ammunition, but how am I going to get him that distance between where he was shot twice in the chest to where the helicopter was that could pick him up and take him out to be treated for his wounds. Mm-hmm. That took almost 3-4 hours. I had to actually take a piece of rope I had with me and throw it into the helicopter and tell them to start pulling the guy up or back to the helicopter so that I could now start to get the third guy. Wow. And it took all day. And it not even in the night, because the battle lasted for about 4 days. After I got those two in, there was still fighting going on, and we had to fight for another 2.5 days. Mm-hmm. And when we finished that evening, I went back to the camp. I ordered a dust off, which takes care of the wounded. Mm-hmm. I ordered that, and they came in the next morning. I got in a helicopter early, and when I got to where the third person was, I can remember stepping out of the helicopter for just a minute. There were so many dead bodies on that battlefield that we couldn't see the grass under the people that were shot up. And so we got into the helicopter, went across the battle zone, got onto the other side, and I had a guy named David. David was the third person that was there. He was in the door when it opened, and we were going to get up and look at the area around us. There was so much blood around things that were there. When I picked up David Morgan, that was his name, he was in the door, and when I saw the flash, I tried to pull him in, but he had been shot with a machine gun. There were so many holes in him that I couldn't. He slipped out of my hand, mm-hmm. and when he slipped out of my hands, he went down right where the Viet Cong was, and so we had a short battle, but I wasn't able to get him, and so we went back to the camp, and I went after Billy Waugh, who was the other guy that was there.
Oh, wow.
And Waugh was a guy that was known by the CIA and everyone else. He had a reputation. In fact, when Munger, who was my company commander, told me that Waugh was going to be the other guy, I didn't know who he was. But I can tell you, the first time I met him, you know what he said to me? I've got 6 silver stars.
Wow.
That was my conversation with him.
Yeah.
And so he and I later got to know each other, and I went after him.
He's an amazing person.
Yeah, that's right. And what happened there, he was in a buffalo rub, which is a big hole, mm-hmm. but it's big enough to the buffalo could put part of his body in it. And what happened there, Waugh had one leg that was up out of the buffalo rub that I could not get in. And there was a sniper there that put 5 rounds in that one leg and 2 in his foot. And and I'm trying to get him squared away. He finally located, because I was trying to work on him. He finally located where that one sniper was, and he pointed him out to me, and I went around the back the whole thing and got a good shot on him and killed him. But then we had to go back and get Waugh back in a position that I could carry him or do something and get him to where he would be able to come with me. I could grab him so that I could get him to the dust off, so that he could be sent back to the hospital.
Yeah.
And that took another 3 hours, just trying to locate the sniper and the best way for me to get there. Now Waugh is now beginning. I mean, there was so much blood on his leg. I only thought he had one leg, but he had two. And anyhow, I finally got enough time to find a way in my mind's mind to get him from where he was to where he needed to be. And it was about 90 feet or something like that. And I'll tell you, the Viet Cong, they were just firing. I understand I got shot up a whole bunch of times. But anyhow, I was lucky enough to get him back to the aircraft. But we couldn't get him on. And what the aircraft had done, the chopper had done, while I'm trying to do all that, the pilot was smart enough to turn that chopper around so that his gunner was facing the enemy's gunner. So that they laid down a little bit of fire support, and we fought there for a while, and it must have been 3-4 hours, and finally I was able to get him on that aircraft.
Yeah.
The thing about that, once we got him on the aircraft, they finally got back to where our home base was, and for that chopper, once we got him back, and they were able to we had to tie a rope around it and throw it in like you were a cowboy, and they had put it under his arm. And so once that happened and he got back on the chopper, they were able to get him out of there. And then I went back to the fight, the battle that we were in, for another 2.5 hours. And the next morning is when I got shot up, but that's a different story. But that's how that worked. So all three of those guys were either dead or alive. Where Reinberg was shot twice in the chest. Waugh had been shot 5 times in the leg, 2 times in the foot, and 1 time in the arm, and his head was creased with another bullet.
Damn.
But we were able to. So he had all these bullets, and the other thing was, the rope that I had so much blood in it that I couldn't tie it up to throw it in the airplane, and so I tried to roll it up and then get him as close to the aircraft to the chopper as I possibly could, but that didn't work. Then we called in some naval gunfire, and we had gone over with the Navy, the sequence of events that we had to put in the right order before the Navy would release any of the firepower that they had, and they kept on saying no, no, no. We finally got it right, and the guy who was taking all the information for the fire command got one part of it screwed up, so we had to go back and start again. Finally, we got him on the aircraft, and it wasn't the person who was taking the information. It was the fact that things were changing. I had given them the coordinates initially, but some of those coordinates were now dead, and we had to put new coordinates in just to get Waugh out of where it was. So the whole thing took, I don't know, about 8, 9. It was already dark in order to get the right Navy gunfire, Air Force gunfire, gunfire from the Army guns, and so it took a long time to get all the people safely back, and so that took the rest of that day. Then we went back the next day to finish off the fight that we had started the day before.
Right. That's kind of incredible that you had a hand in helping to rescue Billy Waugh, participated. I mean, that's we've actually talked about him a few times on our show. First with Rick Prado. I'm not sure if you know who Rick Prado is. He was an Air Force pararescueman, and then after being a pararescueman, he was in the CIA, which is where he got to know Billy.
That's
and then
exactly right.
yeah, and then we also talked to another guy who was in the CIA. His name's John Kiriakou. Not sure if you're familiar with him, but he had the opportunity to meet and talk with Billy too. But Billy, I just want to say real fast, it's remarkable that his career spanned from World War II to the beginning of the GWAT, the Global War on Terror. I mean, you talk about literally the man has been involved in almost every American conflict. It's wild to learn about him, and just at the age that he was, participating in the global war on terror. And the story that John told him, and he'd asked him, like, where have you been? Why were you in Afghanistan? And he said, pardon my language. He goes, where the fuck do you think I've been? I've been killing people. And right. And it's just like that's who he is, but right, like it's you could talk about him doing that in the GWAT, you could talk about him doing that in Vietnam, you could talk about him doing that in World War II. It's wild how large his career is, and how much of how much of a legend that Billy Waugh is, and how many lives he touched across his career. I mean, rest in peace to him, absolutely. But yeah, it's incredible.
You know what? And he was a pretty incredible person, like him or not. And I can remember twice the CIA asked me to come in if I could. And when I got there, I thought they wanted to talk about one of the operations. No,
Yeah.
they want to talk about Billy Waugh.
What do they want to talk to you about Billy about?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that he had this reputation with him, and the CIA. He could do no wrong, because he had the ends with the CIA, and he was every which way.
Right.
And so, yeah.
That's awesome. Now, shifting gears off of Billy Waugh back to your story, but I just wanted to ask you, what was going through your mind when you were refusing to be evacuated? Because that's not something everybody would do.
Well, the thing about it is, I didn't want to be evacuated. I didn't want it to seem like I had to get out of the fight. And when you have soldiers that work for you, and something like that happens, I think it takes you down. Now, let me give you the other side. When Waugh and we got in fight, let me just tell you this one story. We were coming out of a fight that had lasted for a while, and there was a Viet Cong unit that we were fighting, and once we got set up and they were on the other side, what they did was, there was a girl, and she had to be about 6 or 7 years old.
Okay.
They had tied explosives around her, and what happened there was, once they did that and she started crying when she was coming towards us, they would throw stones at her to keep her coming towards us.
Yeah.
Keep us coming. Once she got to where we were, Brown was still alive. And Brown said, why the devil did we kill her? And Waugh said, you see that little woman over there? She's now about 7 or 8 years old. In 10 years, she'll be about 18 or 19 or something. If she finds you, she'll kill your ass. She'll kill you. She's that mean, and then he started slapping Brown on the face and stuff. Said, you ought to be happy that I'm here, and I can slap you, because she'd kill your ass. And don't ever forget that. That's the enemy, and you better realize it and understand who she is and what she's going to do if she's allowed to stay here. I mean, he just went after her and like you would not believe. And he
Right.
was just like that. But at the same time, it was the middle of the night, you want Waugh on your side.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you want him on your side. And
Hmm.
we did not get along all the time. I
Right.
mean, he had some choice words for me about race and everything else.
Really.
And we got into it a couple of times. But in the end, he came to me and said, you know what? I've been wrong about you. I want you to know that I want to apologize. But
That's awesome.
anyway, it was just the way it is.
Hmm.
So, and I never doubted what he could do when we were out there fighting
Yeah.
because we got into a lot of stuff. And part of it was stuff that the CIA wanted done that
Hmm.
they couldn't do themselves, so they had us do it.
Right.
And and it's just, I mean, you get out there and you fight about 2 or 3 days, and you do this and you do that. You get back, you know, a little time to take not a shower, but that's when they started throwing out Agent Orange. We
Really.
were drinking that stuff.
You
We
were
didn't know any different. I mean, it's coming down through the trees,
right.
because we wanted to take care of the foliage,
Hmm.
and you're knocking the tree, and we were drinking it, and I still think that we weren't told about it until after the fact. But
Yeah, no doubt.
it is what it is. You can laugh or dream or whatever, but it happened, and you just take care of whatever it is. Whatever's on that war field, you have to go out there and try to see if you can change it.
Right. If you don't mind the question, you were saying that you guys were out doing some of the things the CIA wasn't able to do, but they wanted you guys to do. What specifically, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, I can tell you some of the stuff, and let me tell you the other. Let me tell you the part I can't tell you
Okay.
that I'm not really sure I know what it was. Is
Mm.
the fact that he came back with all the different places we had to go and the fight that we were going to be in, because the agency wanted that to be taken care of right away. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I'm not sure you get. There's beeping going on, but
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Sorry about that.
no, that's okay.
Battery's fine.
Hmm. I don't know.
I'd like to go over this with you if we have time,
Oh, we do.
because
Yeah, we're good.
there were times that Waugh was put in our team for a reason,
Hmm.
because we had a reputation of really doing well and not backing away. And Waugh was that kind of guy. He would get pissed off if we were in a fight, and just like that girl,
Yeah.
uh, he wanted everyone to know that this is who the enemy is.
Absolutely.
And the other thing was that there was a respect between Waugh, and there was a 3-star general that was running CIA at that time, and that general had me up there twice, and I thought he wanted to talk about the war. He wanted to talk about Waugh and
Wow.
what Waugh would do and what Waugh had done. There were 2 or 3 times when Waugh went after a certain person that was giving us problems, and he stayed out there until he got him. I mean, he had that kind of attitude,
Hmm.
and I think he had been married a couple of 3 times or whatever it might have been, but he had he had this thing, and he sometimes when he had a good day, he let everyone know, and he was in the Wall Street Journal and some other paper. I've got something on the wall where he was in a big fight and so. Let me tell you one other thing before Waugh was a racist,
Yeah.
and I was in there getting cleaned up for something, and Waugh initially never liked me. He didn't. He wanted me to be out there with him, but he didn't like me. And he called me a nigger one day, and I said, you know what? This is where it ends. I said, if you do that again, either you're going to kick my ass or I'm going to kill your ass. It's going to be one or the other.
Yeah.
But he didn't mind. And this goes back to what I said initially. He has 6 silver stars, and when Munger, he was my company commander, said he's going to be on your team. The first thing he did was what? When he came to see me, he said, "I've got 6 silver stars. What do you got?"
Bragging on him.
Yeah, and then slowly but surely, he changed his mind about me, and we got to know each other. But he had a reputation,
Yeah.
and he could slip in and out of stuff. He had Morky. He signed. There was a Jeep there, brand new Jeep, for a 4-star general. I bet you don't know how he signed his name.
How?
George Washington.
Of course he did.
He signed his name George Washington.
That's crazy. Oh my goodness.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Nobody knew it until some guy said, "Where's Washington? I need to get Washington to our Jeep."
Right. Never hear from it. That's awesome. Oh man. It's wild to hear this perspective and the stories about you and Billy. I had no idea we're gonna get that talking to you. It's just what you said about him changing his perspective on you, and I think that just shows like someone like him able to realize that you provide value and that your worth is rooted in who you are as a person, is the most important lesson from, I think, all of that, because you can be anybody from anywhere and contribute in that way, and you saved his life, and to be able to change your opinion about somebody, it can take a lot on somebody's behalf to change, especially deep-rooted things like racism, like you said, but to be able to say that he came to you and said he was wrong and changed his mind. I mean, I think that's a pretty incredible story, and not because of just who Billy is, but because of who you are. I think that's what makes that incredible.
Well, the other thing, and this is the last story about Waugh, but anyhow, I'm in there changing, trying to get some ammo and other stuff. I'm refusing to go out to fight the battle because the ammunition that they had for me was all dirty, this, that, and the other. So I didn't want to take it. They called the general, and the general comes in and says, he looks at it, he said, I agree with you, Colonel Davis. I was a captain then. I agree with you that you should take the ammunition. Now, that's part of it. When that happens, Waugh leaves. Okay, he goes to a small bar.
Okay.
And he has one of the team to come and get me. Waugh's in this small place. It was almost like a beer place where not a lot of people there, but he's there. Waugh's in the corner. He's got a broken bottle. He has the handle of it, and there's 3 black guys on the other side. He comes in there, and you know what he says? Which side are you going to take?
Oh wow!
Now you tell me what. I mean, what do you? This. I mean, he's got this bottle, the neck of the bottle in his hand. There's 3 black guys over there, and they're getting ready to fight each other. And he calls someone to come and get me. I get over there, and the door opens. I'm in there. He's got a grin on his face, and he said, "Okay, which side are you going to be on?"
Wow.
And you topped that one.
Yeah. No, that is a wild story.
Right there in that beer parlor, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's got this smile on his face.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it took us a long time to get out of there.
Yeah.
Because we were throwing stuff at each other, and I'm not leaving him. Because that's the worst thing you could do, is to leave him in that situation. And
absolutely.
And by that time, he found out that I'm not going to run from him, and I'm going to run the team the way I'm supposed to.
That's
but
awesome.
he's in there with the bottom of a liquor bottle, and he's got it in his hand, and he said, "Okay, which side are you on?"
Yeah.
And you give me an answer. But I mean, to be that clever and to wait for a fight to stop so that he have his friend to call me and get me and said, okay, okay, you're black, they're black, which side are you on?
Right. Yeah. No, that's a. I guess you could say. I mean, it takes some balls to say something like that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No.
But that was part. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say. I know you said this last story about Waugh, so I was gonna ask you a question, and from a different vein, but I didn't want to interrupt your thought if you had something else to
No,
say.
go ahead. We can talk.
Yeah. No, I was just going to ask you, you know, that reading about your story, it gone through your Medal of Honor had gone through the process twice of trying to be upgraded and had failed twice. I was just kind of curious what your level of involvement in that process of trying to get it upgraded, or was done on your behalf, and what that process was like before finally you were awarded by President Biden.
Yeah, it's a long story, and I'll tell you as quickly as I can. Number one, I did not know that they had lost it twice.
Okay.
No one told me that. When that was found out, the world knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was out there that they had lost it twice, and nobody could tell where it was. Now, and the government, our government, would not answer anyone. They did not respond to any of the questions. And that's when some of the parents, people on the team, and other units all got into the mesh of saying, let's find out what the hell they did with that black man's Medal of Honor.
Right. Absolutely.
It went on, and you know how long. I mean, it was over 50 years of them having it.
Yeah.
And not being able to find out. And then the other thing, there was a Silver Star that was lost. I never got that, but anyhow, the rest of this stuff was there. And the reason why I say that is the people that we had that were on that team were well decorated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we did not back away from a fight. We did not back away from a fight.
Absolutely.
And the people that the CIA was part of, they knew that we weren't going to back away from a fight. And they were very, very good in terms of helping us.
You feel that they intentionally lost your packages?
You know, I don't know. And the best thing that I did there was to keep my mouth shut.
Right.
I never got into any of the arguments. They would say something, I would shrug my shoulders.
Yeah.
But somebody had to know. You can't lose it twice like that.
I think that was probably the wisest thing you could have done, like you said, just to keep your head down about it, because almost in these like situations like that, I guess are kind of delicate, and being the squeaky wheel almost makes a situation like that political almost, and people will shy away from it and be less willing to help you. And just some of the experiences I had with other things, obviously, but I'm glad to see that, however the reason it was that they came to lose your package twice, and I agree with you. Once is a mistake, twice is a pattern. That they eventually got it right, and that had to be a remarkable experience. What was that like, finding out that that last package didn't get lost and they were upgrading your award? What was that like?
Well, I think that the information was so overwhelming that the government decided, and I'm talking about the military government.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Got you.
I think they decided they weren't going to have they didn't want to give an answer. They knew what had happened, because we take notes for everything if we're in the government.
Mm-hmm.
They knew, but the other thing is, why would I say something when I didn't have a way to win it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to be sorry for 50 years and you don't say anything, you think they're going to tell me on the 51st year? It ain't going to happen.
Mm-mm.
Not right here in River City. And so that's what you're dealing. And then the other thing, Congress people, from good, bad, and indifferent, all of them were yelling and screaming at the government. How could you do that? Not once, but twice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just decided the best thing to do was just be quiet. And so that's how it worked.
What was
We're
that?
gonna have to wrap it up.
Okay.
So can you like close out here?
Why?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Sure.
Yeah, just kind of close out.
I'm sorry to hear that. I wanted you to finish as much as you could.
No, that's okay.
No, maybe you and I can talk a different time.
I would be
And
very down for that because like I said, my co-host, he's an active duty Green Beret medic, and he was really bummed to hear that he was going to miss out about talking to you. So if we end up with another opportunity, I know that he would enjoy it also. But the last, go ahead.
I was going to say maybe one of these days the three of us can go and have lunch somewhere.
I would love something like that. I think that would be remarkable. That's one of my goals with the podcast eventually is to be able to just meet people like you in person and have these conversations over a beer and face to face or whatever your beverage of choice is, The last question I'll ask you, and we can wrap up, is when you look back at some of the junior men who served under you, what do you remember the most about them?
That there was a point in time when everything disappeared except loyalty to each other. You know, I had soldiers that were from Mississippi and Alabama. I mean, they would serve me just like everyone else. They would do what they were told. We'd have missions to do this and that. And I would let guys that didn't like me sometimes leave the mission. And, and I'd make sure that they both weren't together so that one could be in the lead and the other could be in the rear. But the whole thing is, it's about bringing things together.
Right.
Hey, I mean, all this stuff was going on, and I made sure that I stayed clear of it, women and everything else. I didn't mess around.
Yeah.
So and I'm glad I'm talking to you, and I really want us to see if we can have lunch together one of these days.
That would be awesome. I would love something like that. And
your friend too, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the person who coordinated this conversation for us, has my contact information, and we can try and make that happen. However, through a third party, or when we wrap it up, I can get your personal email address or something like that. And we can have a discussion. But I think that what you said was a wonderful way to wrap this conversation up, that at the end, nothing else mattered but loyalty to one another. And I think they should put that on a wall somewhere, on a poster or a T-shirt, something like that, because there's a lot of wisdom in that, and a lot of honor in what you said. I appreciate your insights today and listening to your stories and listening to you talk about the things that you went through. I think that it's incredibly important to capture history, and it's incredibly important to capture it from the people who saw it with their own eyes. And I truly appreciate your time today and talking to me. And I would recommend everybody pick up a copy of your book and read it. And there's a lot of information on you on the internet as well. If people want to take the time to do an internet search and read about you, it's incredible to learn about what you went through and the people that you served with went through during that time. And this nation owes you a great debt.
Well, look, I want you to stay well, your family and all, and I don't want to lose contact with you, okay?
Absolutely.
And we'll get this done, okay?
Sounds good, sir.
And thank you very much for taking my phone call and you being there. And I tell you, you're really a great guy and very smart, and I'd like to keep this going.
Well, I appreciate that. We would too. And I hope that you and Chris, my co-host, his name is Chris, get the opportunity to speak as well. And I know he like I said, he was really bummed to hear he was missing out on it. But you guys we're both Army, and I'm the Air Force guy. So you guys will have that bond right away. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean.
Give me my very best.
I will. Absolutely.
And tell them about how the Air Force saved my life.
I will. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Air Force is doing something, But
yeah,
okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. For everybody listening, I would implore you to check out who Colonel Davis is, and check out the show notes. As like I always like to say, one of the best ways to support us is by supporting our sponsors, and we will catch you guys on the next episode.